Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm Nin Desai, and I'm your host. Let's start with my background. I started my professional career at Merrill Lynch with their private client group. At Merrill, we manage portfolios of high net worth individuals. While it was great to trade stocks and bonds, I was always curious about how these companies went public. Thus, after business school, I joined Pacific Crest Securities. PCS is a tech-focused investment bank with a global presence focused on software, communications, semiconductors, and internet and digital media. Here are a few transactions I worked on at PCS. In 2005, IPOs were at the peak, and it was amazing to take all these companies public. But that led to another question: how do VCs know what companies to invest in and which ones to take public? Thus, I joined Alpha Capital Partners. Alpha is a generalist fund with about $135 million of assets under management. My most recent transaction at Alpha was Circon, a software as a service provider company. During my time at Alpha, I realized how inefficient the fundraising process was, not necessarily at Alpha, but in general. And right around that time, Jobs Act came into existence. We have Gary Jungles from Freeborn and Peters on call here with us. Gary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Freeborn, and walk us into the Jobs Act?
Yes, thank you, Nin, and thank you for having me on the call. As Nin stated, my name is Gary Jungles, and I am a partner in the corporate group at Freeborn and Peters, which is a full-service Chicago-based law firm. And I've been assisting fund sponsors and investors in funds for the last 15 years. I'm investing in funds of all sorts, including buyout funds, venture funds, mezzanine funds, and all different kinds of asset classes and categories. When Nin first approached me about a year and a half ago, it was in connection with the Jobs Act and the SEC, Congress adopting the Jobs Act and the SEC implementing it through the implementation of Rule 506C, which was to be used by fund sponsors to facilitate funds and companies in raising capital, and particularly to do it through ways that were not permitted before, which is the use of the general solicitation and general advertising. So NIN has availed herself through NIN Ventures of the ability to raise funds through including, for instance, the web and through the use of other public media, and is operating under Rule 506C in order to do so. The main gist under 506C is if you do want to take advantage of these rules, as NIN has done, you can only raise money from accredited investors. And an accredited investor is generally an individual with an income of at least $200,000 for the last 2 years, including in the most recent or in the current year, or a joint income with their partner of $300,000, or an individual whose net worth exceeds $1 million, and that excludes the value of your primary residence. And for an entity investor, it's generally any entity with an excess of $5 million of assets. The other feature of this rule that makes it a little bit different than, I guess, ways that fund sponsors used to raise money in the past is there's certain verification methods that the sponsor has to adopt in order to essentially validate the fact that an underlying investor is accredited. And the most common way for that to be done, and the way that NIN is generally hoping it's going to be done, is by the investor providing a third-party certification from that investor's, accountant or attorney or other financial advisor that that person is in fact accredited.
Perfect. Thank you, Gary. Credentials is our most preferred method of third-party verification. The process is really simple. It all happens at a click of a button. It takes, I would say, anywhere from 2 to 3 days to verify yourself as an accredited investor based on how fast your accountant or the person you suggested, your financial advisor, responds. So we are a first of its kind technology venture capital fund to be marketed, raised, managed, and reported online. Like Gary mentioned, we use general solicitation and general advertising under the Rule 506C. The rule came into effect September 23rd, and we were the first ones to go live with the website and video about our fund. We also became the first venture fund to be seen on a billboard, which was followed by in-taxi ads and other social media facilitated marketing. Recently, Wealth and Finance International magazine awarded us as the best technology venture capital fund in Illinois for the Alternative Investment Awards 2015, and we also got awarded the best crowd-funded technology venture capital fund in US for 2015 Fund Awards. Now a little bit about the fund. What will NIN Ventures Technology Fund invest in? The fund will invest in Series A and Series B rounds and write checks anywhere from $1 to $5 million based on the industry, sector, and stage. Our primary focus is on financial services, education software, internet digital media, mobile communication, cloud computing, 3D printing, and other path-breaking sectors within the United States. So why venture capital, and what is our strategy? Our strategy is to invest in early to growth stage path-breaking technology-focused companies. From 2002 to 2012, technology investments have dominated the venture capital industry. And the highest amount of venture capital funding occurred in the early to expansion stage companies. If you notice, from 2002 to 2011, sector-focused funds have outperformed generalist funds. And technology sector has outperformed the rest of the US venture capital index. This is a very important graph, so please take a note. With early and expansion stage company yielding the highest returns. Thus, NIN Ventures will invest in path-breaking early to growth stage technology companies will not only provide adequate financing, but lend our domain expertise and network of partners to help companies with recruitment, PR, marketing, and a viable exit strategy. The strength of our team, the value of our network, and our funding model that's designed to reduce management costs creates this unique investment opportunity. Not only that, we bring a fresh vision to technology investing. We invest in the next big trends in technology. So if you ask me, what do you think is the next big thing in tech that we are currently hot on, I would say it's 3D printing. 3D printing has been used for rapid prototyping and has been applied in a number of industries today, including manufacturing, automotive, consumer, aerospace, defense, and healthcare. As the accuracy and material markets have improved, the medical space shows great potential for this technology. So the basic question is, why venture capital? Historically, if you look at US Venture Capital Index and S&P 500, you will notice US Venture Capital Index tends to outperform S&P 500. And not only that, they have an inverse relationship. So what does that mean? For example, your traditional portfolio consists of 70% stocks, 20% bonds, 10% money market investments. With the addition of venture capital, your portfolio can now be 60% stocks, 20% bonds, 10% money market, and 10% venture capital investment. The addition of venture capital will not only help you diversify your investment, it will help you mitigate the risk given the inverse correlation between S&P 500 and US Venture Capital Index. For example, Yale and Harvard are the biggest and the best performing endowment funds. Their long-term approach and investment alternative like venture capital allows them to achieve true diversification and help mitigate the risk involved in having only a stock and bond portfolio. With NIN.VC, you too can invest like Harvard and Yale. There are multiple ways of investing in our fund. You can use your checking account, defined benefit plan, self-directed IRA, digital currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin. Now let's go through the investment process step by step in detail. Sign up on NIN.VC. It's as simple as providing your first name, last name, email, and acknowledging that you are an accredited investor. Once you sign up, you get access to our marketing materials, that is a PPM, investor presentation, and other suggested reading. You get a personal invite to our calls and events. You can also schedule a one-on-one meeting with myself or anybody from our office online or via Skype. Once you decide to make an investment, accept the risk and disclosure statement that will explain what venture capital investment is. The next step, like Gary mentioned, is to verify accreditation. Once that is in order, it's only a matter of filling out a subscription document, a W-9 form on nin.vc. And the final step is payment, which is as simple as selecting the type of payment method that you would like to use and the amount you wish to invest. Please note that venture capital is a high-risk, high-reward investment vehicle, and we strongly recommend reviewing the other suggested reading on our website before making any investment decision. On that note, we're open for questions. Please type your questions in the chat box and direct them to Gary or me, and then we'll answer them all. John is asking here, Gary, why only accredited investors? Why do we only accept accredited investors?
That's because of the particular nature of this fundraise, relying on Rule 506C. It does only allow for, even though we can utilize, or NIN can utilize the general solicitation, general advertising features, it is only limited to accredited investors under this particular rule. There are some other crowdfunding rules that have been adopted by the SEC and other similar rules, such as the new Rule A Plus, Regulation A Plus, which does allow for the solicitation of non-accredited investors in certain circumstances. But unfortunately, at this time, given that this is a fund investment as opposed to a company investment, there's limitations on the ability of fund sponsors to utilize some of those other rules, which do allow for non-accredited investors.
Got it. Thank you. Next question is, can I get a PPM without signing up?
Well, as Nin said, you should at least, you don't necessarily have to provide all the verification as to the fact that you're an accredited investor before getting access to the PPM, but you should at least acknowledge to the fact that you're an accredited investor before doing so.
All right, I believe the next question is, can I schedule a one-on-one? Yes, David, you can schedule a one-on-one with myself or anybody from my team by visiting us online, or you can just call in and somebody will be more than happy to do that. With 25 million and 1 to 5 per investment, does that mean you invest in 5 to 25 deals, and is that per year? So once we close the fund, we'll start deploying that capital, and the size of the deal depends on the type of the company we plan on investing. So if it will be a 3D printing deal, we'll probably write a bigger check. It might be a $5 million check, but if it's a software deal or an app, it probably does not require that much capital for Series A and Series B round, especially since we tend to do deals in syndicates, so it might be a smaller check. So we plan on doing multiple deals. There's no timeline. Deals are done as and when the best one arrives at our table and we get the best valuations. Any other questions? All right, one last question, I believe, from David. Can international investors invest? Gary, do you want to answer that question, please?
So the preferred approach would be that an international investor comes through some kind of a U.S. contact that an investor might have. The reason is that there's these rules that were adopted by the SEC, and in this case, particularly 506C. We can't verify whether or not in any given jurisdiction overseas, whether or not general advertising or solicitation may be permitted in that jurisdiction. So We generally would prefer that investors be either U.S. domiciled or invest through U.S. vehicles if possible. Again, that's in large part because of the fact that these rules generally only apply to U.S. solicitations.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right, once again, thank you all for being on the call. Sign up on nin.vc to begin your investment process, and feel free to reach us at contact@nin.vc or 312-953-0930 to schedule one-on-one meetings or with any questions and material requests. Have a wonderful day and happy investing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.